Welcome back to another recording. Today we're going to be speaking about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Just bring a general understanding of what it is so you can be prepared when your taxes are being filed. I am Tiana Thompson, an accountant and an enrolled agent admitted to practice in front of the IRS. So I spend a lot of time in the tax law and I wanted to just bring some clarity to this. So let's start with an overview of what this is. So it's up to $25,000 in deductions for qualified tips, and it's up to $12,500 if you're single, or $25,000 if you're married for overtime. So up to $25,000 for one per return. So up to $25,000 per tax return for tips, and up to $12,500 if you are single for overtime deduction, and up to $25,000 if you're married filing jointly for overtime compensation deduction, right? And this is from a federal tax return. Nothing at all to do with state unless your state has adapted this new ruling. All right, so let's start with looking at the tips. We have a W-2 in front of us, and I'll get into that shortly. So the qualified tips must be voluntary, can't be a mandatory service charge. It's received in a customary tipping occupation and it's properly recorded. So can't be a manual service charge. It must be voluntary, customary tipping occupation, and the IRS has a list of occupations that qualify as tip industry, for lack of a better term, right? Let's go into this. So in terms of your income, now it's income above $150,000 if you're single, and income above $300,000 if you're married. Typically, you don't get as much of the benefits of this. So the higher your income is, if once you start going above $150,000, it phases out until it phases out until it gets to no deduction allowed, right? So now let's t look at this W-2. Typically, and I say typically, um, it's box 7 of a W-2 is where we would find the tip information for, let's say, for example, a server, right? So we look on box 7 of the W-2. Granted, you meet the income requirements, you can get up to $25,000. So depending on how much you have there, you can get up to $25,000 um, in deductions, right? On your W-2. Now let's talk about no tax on overtime. Requirements are, pretty much similar. Income above $150,000 if you're single, it starts to phase out. You don't get the benefits until it gets to zero. And for married filing jointly, around 300 for that amount. So for no tax on overtime, it is $12,500 per file taxpayer, right? So if there's two persons, it's $12,500 each that you'd be able to get it deducted, granted your income meets the requirement, right? And how we determine that is by, and this is for overtime, how we determine that is by looking at your pay stub, right? So the last pay stub for the year of, we're in 2020, we're filing for 2025 taxes. The last pay stub in December that you receive, we would take a look at that. And if we have any additional questions, we'll let you know. And then we will determine of that over time how much of it is actually deductible on your taxes, right? Now let's talk about tips for persons who have 1099 or they're self-employed and they meet the requirements of being of the tips being voluntary, and it's not like a mandatory service charge, and it's in that occupation that the IRS says, okay, this is a tip job or a tip career, right? So it would be for the 1099, you would request, let's say for example, you're a dasher, or you use Square, you have a business and you use Square. You would request a report from DoorDash, Uber, or Square if you qualify for a statement showing how much of that income is tips versus how much of it is not tips, right? And then we'd be able to make the deductions as your tax preparer for that. Now, remember, the states um, don't nec- won't nec- may not nec have this. So not your state may not have the no tax on the tip. So while the IRS will allow that on your 1040 once you meet the requirement, your state may very well just tax as normal because this is new. That's it's just come in since effective 2025, and it's going to go all the way through 2028 unless we have other guidance. All right. So if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. You can reach out to me in the contact details listed in this video, and I will assist you as best as I can. All right, you have a great day and have a great tax season. Bye.